President-elect Donald Trump promising new tariffs upon his return to the White House. Industries are scrambling to understand how big those tariffs could be and what kind of impact they might have. And perhaps no sector is under threat as much as retail, which could see prices skyrocket potentially. Here's what Walmart CFO John David Rainey said about the possibility of more tariffs earlier today on Yahoo Finance.
Well, look, we've been living under a tariff environment for 7 years, so we're very accustomed to that. I'll remind you that 2/3 of the items that we sell are made, grown, or assembled in the United States. So we're always going to look to work with our suppliers or use our own private brand assortment to try to bring down prices for customers. Everyday low prices is what we stand for, and so we'll have to navigate that environment. Tariffs are inflationary for customers, but we want to work to bring down prices.
Joining us now, Steve Lamar, American Apparel and Footwear Association President and CEO. Good to see you, Steve.
Great to see you.
So, a company like Walmart also has the benefit of size, if you will. But first, I want to go back in time a little bit to the first Trump administration when we were talking to you about this very issue. When all was said and done, what did your members experience from that first round of tariffs, and how did they navigate it?
Well, I mean, there were costs that were imposed on them, and these are tariffs are costs that the importers pay. Some cases they were passed along to consumers. Other cases they tried to find other ways to mitigate. When they could find alternative sourcing, they would move out of China and look for other countries to the extent they could come to the United States, but there really aren't that many options here. We don't have the scale and capability or the skill set even to really bring the production back to the U.S. So they looked for other ways to do it, but by and large, what you saw was tariffs being imposed on products that ultimately, in many cases, made their way to consumers in the form of higher prices.
And so Steve, what are retailers doing now? How are they trying to position themselves?
Well, there's really no good options. I mean, if you kind of look at what the proposals on the table, and again, these are just proposals. Nothing's been in effect yet. 60 to 100% tariff on products coming in from China. In our space, that's about 40% of all the products that come in, and then 10 to 20% on everything else, right? So if it's an effort to get you to move out of China, well, you move out of China, but then you're moving to other countries where there's also tariffs. As I said before, locating production back to the U.S. at that level of scale isn't really an option. Many companies would like to do more, but there just simply isn't that capability to do that. And so now they're trying to figure out, what kind of steps do they take in the short term? Maybe there's some long or medium term things. A lot of it has to do with helping determine whether, is the administration going to do all that stuff? Are they going to exempt free trade agreements, for example? And if they do, then maybe free trade agreements become an opportunity to source and to not encounter these tariffs.
You were saying it would be difficult to reshore that production. Does there need to be something like the CHIPS Act for other industries, like the apparel and footwear industry, where there could be that kind of reshoring could be incentivized, for example?
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas that are on the table. One of the really cool ones that we're looking at, or that Congress has proposed, is to try to create more incentives for circularity, right? So using used clothing, right? Taking that used clothing, turning that into new fabrics, new materials, and then repurposing that, whether that's made in the United States or exported and then made somewhere else. So there's a lot of ideas that are in place here. We actually have one really cool concept, something called the Berry Amendment, which requires all military uniforms to be made in the United States from U.S. materials. A really great idea. We're looking to strengthen that. Ironically, one of the biggest suppliers under that is Federal Prison Industries, the U.S.'s own federal prison factory system. So even systems that we have in place that would seem to work, we have a number of obstacles that kind of prevent those from working as effectively as they could.
Have you crunched the numbers, Steve, or even seen estimates where, let's say, Trump imposes the tariffs he's talked about, the impact on retailers' bottom lines? What kind of hit that would actually mean for earnings broadly? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it on individual retailers, but sort of the good news scenario here is it's sort of a shared pain. It would hit everybody. We're not talking about certain companies or certain countries. I mean, obviously China more than other countries, but we're really talking something that's across the board, right? And we're talking about something that's across the board. In our industry, 98% of our fashion is imported, right? So when you look at that, that's something that's really going to affect pretty much everybody. Everyone's going to be in the same boat. So that shared pain concept is going to be something that we're all going to have to manage. And unfortunately, you can't really have the concept of high tariffs and low prices. You can't hold those two contradictory views at the same time. So we're going to do our best to work with the new administration to make sure they understand it, that if they want to do this, it's going to not only come at the expense of lower income Americans, but it's going to be new tariffs on top of a tariff structure that already is regressive and, get this, misogynistic. The tariff structure that we have in place right now, it's 95 years old. We have higher tariff rates. The U.S. government charges this higher tariff rates on products for women than products for men. So like a woman's sweater might be 14% tariff and a men's sweater might be 12% tariff. We should be fixing that rather than putting more tariffs on top.
Well, okay, maybe I'm going too far afield now, but as somebody who used to live in Europe, where the approach to clothing is quite different, you spend more and you have less, and it lasts longer. Whereas we, fast fashion, which has also taken hold there, but fast fashion dominates our apparel buying habits in this country. I mean, I don't know how you would make cultural change, but if you did those things, would that help with some of these issues?
Absolutely, and in fact, there's a lot of work that's being done right now. California just passed legislation called extended producer responsibility that's going to kind of do a better job of collecting old clothing and then turn that into sort of circular textiles. A number of other regulatory initiatives that are underway. And so one of the things we should be looking at as an industry is figuring out how best can we inject sustainability, how best can we inject some of this more responsibility into it so these products last longer, they're made from recycled materials. We hit all of those sustainability efforts, not how best can we avoid new tariffs that are coming in place. It's the wrong conversation that we're having right now, unfortunately.
Steve, as you talk with the Trump team, obviously there's real sharp disagreements. Are there areas of common ground you can kind of work through?
Yeah, I think the administration, the Trump administration, they're going to be looking to support jobs, right? And part of that will be manufacturing jobs. We have some manufacturing jobs. The question is, will we be creating more manufacturing jobs, or will these be other jobs in the fashion industry, such as compliance and legal and retail and logistics, all those jobs that go into supporting the immense value add that we have. If we import a product, about 70% of the product's value at retail is U.S. value add. About 30% is value that's contributed in other countries. So as we talk about that, the question is we want jobs and we want affordability. And there's a way we can do both, but tariffs is probably not the best way to do that.